So the 2020 F1 season was a decent one, with 5 different race winners and 13 different podium finishers, with a strong battle for P3 in the constructors. But what if we ran that in reverse? Well, that's what we're going to cover in today's video. So let's start off in Abu Dhabi, round 1 of the championship. It's a very boring race, but Verstappen takes a dominant victory from Bottas and Hamilton. So could Verstappen and Red Bull pose a serious threat to Mercedes this year? Ferrari had an awful first day, not even scoring any points. After round 1, Verstappen leads from the two Mercedes, and McLaren have a strong showing in 5th and 6th. In the constructors, Red Bull lead from Mercedes, from McLaren, then Renault, AlphaTauri, and Racing Point. Now let's move on to the Sakir Grand Prix. Hamilton is tested positive for COVID-19, and George Russell takes a seat at Mercedes. A race that looks crazy turns out to be even crazier, with Perez coming back from a lap 1 collision to take the win, and Ocon and Stroll following suit. Mercedes have an awful day, finishing in the lower sections of the points. In the driver's standings, Verstappen and Perez are now tied at the top of the standings, as Albon, Sainz, and Ocon are all tied for P4 in the standings. In the constructors, Red Bull lead from Racing Point, who have jumped up to 2nd, and Mercedes are in 3rd. In Bahrain, a scary crash for Romain Grosjean is the main talking point, as Hamilton and Mercedes take their first win of the season, followed by Verstappen and Albon, their first double podium since Japan 2017. In the drivers, Verstappen leads from Hamilton and Albon, while Bottas is down to 5th after a terrible 2 races in P8. In the constructors, Red Bull still leads from Mercedes, as McLaren and Renault overtake a scoreless Racing Point. The 4th round in Turkey puts up another great race, as Stroll takes pole and Hamilton takes an incredible victory as chaos ensues behind him, as Perez takes P2. Ferrari have a great showing in P3 and P4, giving them an extra 27 points, the most of any constructor that day. After this race, Hamilton manages to jump Verstappen, while Bottas falls to 7th, as his seat starts to raise some questions among fans. After this race as well, Mercedes overtake Red Bull in the constructors, as Ferrari starts to make a comeback from the back. Hamilton wins the next 3 races in dominant fashion, as Red Bull start to fall behind Mercedes. The rest of the drivers are left taking the pieces, as Ricciardo manages 2 P3s in the Emilia-Romagna and Eifel Grand Prix. After the Eifel GP, Hamilton takes a commanding lead over the championship, as Bottas is still in 5th after retiring from the Eifel GP. Constructors-wise, McLaren leads best of the rest, as they are being hunted down by Racing Point and Renault. For round 8 in Russia, Bottas gets a much-needed victory followed by Verstappen and Hamilton, and for the Tuscan Grand Prix, Hamilton gets his 6th win of the season followed by Bottas and Albon, who gets a 2nd and much-needed podium of the year. After the race, Hamilton takes a commanding championship lead and Bottas jumps to 2nd, just ahead of Verstappen. Constructors-wise, Mercedes are still dominant out in front, however the battle for P3 is still raging on, and one strong result could swing the battle one way or the other. Next we move on to round 10, the Italian Grand Prix. A horrible day for Mercedes and Red Bull saw Pierre Gasly winning the race, from Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll. Ferrari had an awful day, with a double retirement at their home race. After this race, Gasly is tied on points with a struggling Albon. Gasly's demotion to AlphaTauri now seems like a bad idea. In the constructors, McLaren jumped from 5th to 3rd after being awarded 30 points. However, Racing Point and Renault are still very close behind. The next 2 races in Belgium and Spain saw Lewis Hamilton take his 91st and 92nd victories, matching and overtaking Michael Schumacher's record of 91 wins. Bottas and Verstappen finish off the podium in both races. After the Spanish Grand Prix, Bottas holds 2nd as Verstappen is right on his tail, as Perez, Ricciardo, and Sainz look to be the main 3 contenders for P4 in the Drivers' Championship. In the constructors, strong results for both Renault and Racing Point see them jump McLaren in the race for 3rd. The 70th anniversary Grand Prix is a direct battle between Verstappen and the 2 Mercedes, as Verstappen wins from Hamilton and Bottas. Sergio Perez is contracted with COVID-19, so Nico Hülkenberg replaces him and manages to take 3rd spot on the grid. After the race, Bottas is just 3 points ahead of Verstappen, as a strong result for Leclerc sees him jump up the order. In the constructors, McLaren managed to jump Renault after a bad result for the French team. Despite Verstappen's efforts, Mercedes managed to wrap up their 7th consecutive constructors title, breaking Ferrari's record of 6 from 1999 to 2004. It is Puncture City in the British Grand Prix, as Hamilton wins the race on 3 wheels and Bottas falls to 11th due to a puncture. Leclerc manages a podium for Ferrari, a great way to cap off his time in the UK. Verstappen manages to jump Bottas with 3 races to go. However, the main story here is that Lewis Hamilton takes his 7th Constructors' title, equaling Michael Schumacher's record on 3 wheels and at his home race, which is one of the biggest stories of the season. Further down the grid, Ricciardo manages to jump Perez as Perez had to sit down another race due to COVID. The Constructors is tight as ever for P3 with Racing Point, Renault, and McLaren separated by 9 points with 3 rounds to go. After Leclerc's podium, Ferrari managed to jump AlphaTauri for 6th place. At Hungary, Hamilton leads a dominant race as Verstappen recovers from a formation lap crash to P2. The penultimate round in Styria sees Hamilton take his 11th win of the season, followed by the usual podiums of Bottas and Verstappen. A last lap shuffle with Norris, Perez, Stroll, and Ricciardo is exciting, as tensions build to the decider for P3 in Austria. With just 1 round to go, Verstappen and Bottas were head-to-head for P2, while Ricciardo and Perez look to be the main contenders for P4. Racing Point leads a 12-point game between Renault and McLaren into the decider at Austria. The finale at Austria proves to be a crazy race, as Bottas took a crucial victory after Verstappen DNF'd. Lando Norris claims an important podium for McLaren, as only 11 cars finished the race. In the drivers, Bottas manages to overtake Verstappen for P2, while Perez manages to overtake Ricciardo for P4. Sainz and Albon are tied for 6th, while Leclerc and Norris are 1 point apart in P8 and P9. In the Constructors, a 26-point haul for McLaren saw them manage to clinch P3 in the title, only 7 points ahead of Racing Point, who were deducted 15 points due to being deemed to have illegal brake ducts, while they managed a full 21 points clear of Renault. Ferrari capped off an awful season in P6, while AlphaTauri came out in P7. Alfa Romeo, Haas, and Williams finished off the back of the grid. So what really changed? Verstappen and Red Bull got off to a flying start due to their form in the first 3 races, but then dropped off toward the mid part of the season. Bottas and Verstappen are in a season-long duel for second, which culminates in the final round. The midfield is switched, as drivers such as Perez and Ricciardo got off to great starts, unlike in real life where the endings of their season were their highlight and their main points haul. The battle for P3 was arguably more exciting, as Renault was a more prominent contender for the title coming into the final round.